This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Christians in the crosshairs, good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. Things have gone from bad to worse for Christians in Nigeria. Islamic militants today kidnapped dozens of children from a Catholic school in the northwest part of that country. Correspondent Greg Palcott.
Local media now says that 52 school children aged 12 to 17 were kidnapped. A desperate search is now on, involving military and police. This comes after a Catholic church nearby was attacked earlier this week. 2 people were killed and 38 worshipers were abducted. Thousands of Christians have been killed in recent years, leading some to speak of a Christian genocide there.
25 children were kidnapped in another school in western Nigeria on Monday. A meeting of the minds at the White House today. It's the ultimate face-off between capitalism and socialism. President Trump and the mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, will get together in the Oval Office this afternoon. Presidential spokeswoman Caroline Levitt.
We have a communist coming to the White House.
For his part, Mamdani's hopeful that get-together will yield results.
I believe that we should be relentless and pursue all avenues and all meetings that could make our city affordable for every single New Yorker.
Political journalist Munay Ukwabura.
President Trump understands that Zohran Mamdani has become one of the biggest stars and one of the biggest forces in American politics. And he says, hey, bring him in. I want to talk to him.
Reporter Aaron Navarro has more from the White House.
In terms of what could potentially be achieved, affordability seems to be the big focus for Mamdani, lowering costs, which is something that President Trump ran on in 2024. For his part, ever since Mamdani won the election and became the mayor-elect of New York City, President Trump has said that he wants New York to be successful.
Mamdani takes office January 1st. For the third year in a row, the cost of that Thanksgiving dinner is down. A big reason for that is a drop in turkey prices. The American Farm Bureau says this year a dinner for 10 will cost you $55. That's down 5% from last year. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is confident that you and I will see a reduction in prices soon once the impact of the Trump tariff deals take effect.
We are going to see these trade deals turn into jobs. And look, the one thing we're not going to do is tell the American people they don't know what they're feeling like the Biden people did. You know, they said, you don't realize how good you are. Shut up, move along.
President Trump wants to give every American a $2,000 tariff rebate check next spring. Grover Norquist with Americans for Tax Reform, not a fan of that idea.
It'd just be another welfare program where you send checks to people who hadn't been working necessarily. Sending checks to people is not a good idea.
The $2,000 rebate checks would require congressional approval. President Trump suggests that Democrats who urged members of the military to disobey unlawful orders are guilty of sedition. 6 Democratic lawmakers with military backgrounds posted an online video this week calling on members of the armed forces to defy illegal orders. NBC's Peter Alexander.
Democrats were not specific in the video, but say they've heard concerns from troops about the Trump administration strikes against alleged drug boats near South America and about the use of troops in U.S. cities.
Retired U.S. Marine Mark Geis says those Democrats were out of bounds to make that video.
The irresponsibility of these politicians, having been in the positions that they have been in the military, they know better. And if they don't, then that really worries me more than anything, because it's very clear what an illegal order is and what an unlawful order is.
House Speaker Mike Johnson called the video unprecedented in U.S. history, and those who made it, he said, need to be called to account. Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jack Jasmine Crockett is under fire for accusing former New York Congressman and current EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin of accepting campaign donations from disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Crockett made the claim on the floor of the House following the release of the Epstein files. Turns out the FCC filing that Crockett cited on the floor of the House was a different Jeffrey Epstein. Zeldin says his campaign donation came from a doctor with the same name as the infamous human sex trafficker. Newly discovered emails reveal that the top two teachers' unions in this country are doubling down on far-left indoctrination. The AFT and the NEA are sponsoring teacher training sessions over the next couple of months that promote transgenderism. Ryan Walters with the Teacher Freedom Alliance.
The teachers' unions are destroying our schools. They're destroying this country. The way you get A's in a classroom now in a teachers' union-run school is by being woke. And the parents are tired of it. They're sick of it. They want good teachers in the classroom, not teachers' unions, woke nonsense. This has to end. And again, the country's education system depends on our schools getting the teachers' unions out and putting the parents back in control of their kids' education.
Those training sessions to advance the LGBTQ agenda are scheduled for early December and mid-January. The Coast Guard says it's doubling down on its current policy regarding hate symbols. In a decision released late yesterday, it said divisive or hate symbols and flags are prohibited, adding that includes nooses and swastikas and any symbols or flags co-opted or adopted by hate-based groups, end quote. This comes after multiple reports said the Coast Guard was moving to label such symbols as potentially divisive. A policy that was put in place a few years ago had called the display of symbols like swastikas and nooses a potential hate incident. The new policy reportedly will take effect next month. A federal judge is considering a final ruling about the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The Maryland District Court judge heard oral arguments in the case yesterday and expressed concerns about the testimony of an Immigration and Customs Enforcement official who had admitted that he had no specific knowledge of the Garcia case. The illegal immigrant's attorneys also criticized the government for pushing to have him deported to Liberia when he'd already agreed to be sent to Costa Rica. The judge did not say when she would issue a ruling in this highly charged case. The CDC website now suggests a link between childhood vaccines and autism.
The claim that vaccines cause autism was ignited by a 1998 study in The Lancet, a prestigious British journal which retracted the study 12 years later. Health and Human Services Secretary Kennedy has launched a comprehensive review of the causes of autism and called the changes to the website, quote, a common sense upgrade.
Correspondent Gwen Baumgardner. Meta has started notifying young Australians to delete their accounts from Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. A new law takes effect December 10th in Australia. It bans social media for anyone under 16 in the land down under. It's a big payday today for hundreds of airport workers who've held down the fort during the government shutdown. Reporter Maggie Vespa.
The Trump administration is announcing those $10,000 bonuses for, they say, nearly 800 air traffic controllers and technicians who worked through the government shutdown. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy calling them patriotic men and women who, quote, never missed a beat and kept the flying public safe.
Wednesday before Thanksgiving and the Sunday after the holiday expected to be the busiest travel days of the year at the airport. Still to come on the Noon Report, Bills lose in prime time, teaching kids frugality at Christmas time, and the 91-year-old that's in the way in the town of Clay.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. The weekend is upon us, and it looks fairly uneventful weather-wise with respect to any pre-Thanksgiving travel in our region. I'll have the latest forecast coming up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. Josh Allen was sacked 8 times last night as the Buffalo Bills fell to the Houston Texans on Thursday Night Football. Last year's NFL MVP admitting some of those sacks were his own fault.
I ran into a couple myself. I got to be better with throwing the ball away and living to see another down. And too many times I was going backwards, and I got to be better on that.
Those 8 sacks were the most in a single game in Allen's career. The 7-4 Bills have 10 days to rest up before they take on the Steelers in Pittsburgh at the end of November. 4 former prison guards were sentenced today for their role in the beating death of inmate Robert Brooks last December at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County, New York. A total of 10 officers have been charged in that case. A 91-year-old widow is facing eviction from her home to make way for the new Micron computer chip facility in the town of Clay in central New York. Onondaga County Executive Ryan McMahon.
It's not possible for us to have a mega campus and have that house there.
Azalea King has filed a lawsuit against the county for the right to remain in that home. The county may use eminent domain to kick her out. King's grandson, Jason Brown, spoke at a packed town hall meeting yesterday.
Government is for the people that are already living here, not for the people we're trying to attract to this community.
The land dispute is the latest legal challenge from Micron, which hopes to break ground next month on its massive multi-billion-dollar computer chip-making facility. A Pennsylvania woman was able to escape 2 men this week who police say were planning on trafficking her in Canada. The woman stabbed one of the men in the neck while they were traveling on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. A trooper spotted the Chevy Silverado driving erratically while exiting the Blue Mountain Tunnel in Franklin County. Once the vehicle came to a stop, that woman got out and ran across the highway. Police say the 2 men were from Denver and had kidnapped this woman and drugged her in the vehicle. A stun gun and zip ties were found inside that Chevy Silverado. Pennsylvania's top fiscal watchdog is calling out the state health department. It cannot account for a large chunk of cash meant for EMS services. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
Auditor General Tim DeFore said Thursday that the Department of Health failed to show how 68% of its EMS spending was used between 2021 and 2024. Of the $29 million reviewed, auditors sampled $5.1 million, and the department could not provide documentation for $3.4 million of it. DeFore said similar problems were found in audits going back more than a decade, calling the findings deja vu all over again. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. After just 2 years on the job, the president of Roberts Wesleyan University in Rochester, New York, is leaving his post. Rupert Hayes plans to step down January 2nd. He helped oversee that school's transition from a college to a university. The chair of the Board of Trustees will take over on an interim basis. The National Retail Federation is predicting that Americans will collectively spend over $1 trillion on Christmas stuff this year. It's the first time ever that Christmas shopping sales have surpassed the $1 trillion mark. Retail analyst Bobby Rebell says the holidays can be a teachable moment for parents and kids when it comes to finances.
Don't get everything on the list. Use this as an opportunity to reframe the holidays as a teaching moment for your kids to be eventually financial grown-ups, to learn about money and have them work with you to prioritize what's most important to them.
Rebell cites a recent study that shows 61% of parents would rather go into debt than disappoint their children. A successful rock band from Western New York is giving back this holiday season. Here's Family Life's Dee Haley.
The Goo Goo Dolls Band gave back to Western New York with a big donation following a pair of local benefit concerts. Last night, the Buffalo-born band presented a check for $150,000 to Feed More Western New York Food Bank at Buffalo's Town Ballroom, where the Goo Goo Dolls performed 2 benefit concerts earlier this week. The sold-out shows gave fans a close-up experience following a sold-out show at KeyBank Center over the summer. All proceeds from this week's concerts were donated. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
All right, thank you for that, Dee. And still to come on the Noon Report for a Friday, the Kirk effect, alive and well. The Capital Connection crew sounds off on all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg. And Kev's got your weekend forecast, the last before that Turkey Day getaway.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. During the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, quote, Charlie started a political movement, but unleashed a spiritual revival. Well, many people have, in fact, been using that word revival to describe what's happened, especially among young people, since the September 10th assassination of the founder of Turning Point USA. According to a Fox News article published just a few weeks after his death, pastors and religious leaders across the United States, including Arizona, where Kirk was based, have reported a 15 to 30% increase in church attendance. And many of the new attendees referred to Kirk's death as a kind of wake-up call about their mortality and faith. J.P. DeGance, the founder and president of Communio, a ministry that helps churches strengthen marriages, told the Christian Post this, quote, there's been a lot of anecdotal feedback from churches in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Douglas County, Colorado, reporting that they've seen an increase in attendance over the last 2 Sundays. There's one church in Michigan that said a number of young adults who were raised in the church but hadn't been there and people who hadn't seen them for years showed back up. Also, Bible sales in the month of September were about 36% higher than the previous year, according to Nielsen Bookscan. And of course, every single aspect of the Turning Point organization has seen an incredible surge of interest in the wake of Kirk's death. That includes TPUSA Faith, a group that helps churches put their faith into action. But the most substantial evidence of whether or not we're in a time of Christian revival still remains to be seen. Specifically, it remains to be seen whether what many are calling the Kirk effect will prove to be only short-term, kind of like the wave of patriotism that followed 9/11. If there is a significant work of the Lord that's brewing in our country, well, there are 2 surefire ways to miss it. The first is to presume that God could never work in the way that he is working. Many have presumed as much about Christians who are deemed to be too political, especially someone with the kind of public profile that Charlie Kirk had in life, and even more in his death. The second way to miss God's working in this moment is to spend all of our time and energy saying some version of I told you so, rather than wait on the Lord with thankfulness and praise for working in our midst. Revivals are fed by a growing awareness, most importantly of the glory of God, and also of the seriousness of sin. All the attempts then to seize a platform or to claim credit or to manufacture some internal change will never achieve the eternal ends that religious revival will. Now, we can certainly rejoice that there seems to be a growing awareness of spiritual things, a growing rejection of some of the worst ideas that have poisoned our culture, and a clear growing groundswell of courage among God's people. Our choice now is whether we will join this work, faithful to what is true and what is good. The Colson Center is committed to helping Christians live with this kind of faithfulness and courage in this cultural moment. The daily Breakpoint commentaries provide clarity amidst the confusion and confidence in the truth. The Colson Fellows program equips Christians to serve their churches, their families, and their Christian schools. And Truth Rising is challenging Christians across America and around the world to engage this civilizational moment with hope. Would you consider joining us in this mission to advance a Christian worldview with a generous year-end gift? Thanks to a $500,000 match, every single gift before the end of the year will have double the impact. So please give today at colsoncenter.org/November. That's colsoncenter.org/November. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you very much, John. Let's head outside next. Weekend weather with weatherman Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Mainly cloudy and drab. A brief shower in spots. High temperatures mid-40s to the mid-50s. Mainly cloudy tonight. There'll be some rain in parts of Pennsylvania, focused on the area near and south of Interstate 80. Low temperatures tonight, 30s and low 40s. Tomorrow, clouds, maybe an early day flurry in parts of western and central New York, then some sun, chillier, high temps, low to mid 40s. Sunday, some sun in Pennsylvania, mostly cloudy with a rain or snow shower in New York, high temps in the 40s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. It is Friday, folks. Congratulations, you've made it. The 21st of November, and this is the Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Jason McGuire with New York Families and Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Michael, I want to begin with you, hot off the presses, the 2025 State of Abortion Report. You've been putting out this report for the past several years. First of all, tell us why you do it, and then, if you would, what were the major themes in this year's survey?
Well, we do this report to alert Pennsylvanians as to the continued prevalence of abortion in our Commonwealth. And what this report reveals this year is a 14-year high in the abortion numbers, due in part to the increase, especially of dangerous chemical abortions. They're called medical abortions, or the abortion pill, which are available online and ubiquitous in so many different ways and very dangerous, creating lots of complications. We also looked at the continued failed inspections that are happening at some abortion facilities, guidelines that were put into place in Pennsylvania after the Kermit Gosnell abortion clinic scandal, and yet we still continue to see failures in these inspections.
Read all about it. It's online, and we'll give that web address at the end. Jason, Governor Hochul has pledged $35 million in funding for Planned Parenthood. Why is she bailing out the nation's largest abortion provider?
Well, the governor will portray this as a contrast with what's happening at the federal government as there becomes greater restrictions on using dollars to fund abortions. The governor says we're simply just filling in where the federal government is falling short. The reality is, though, that this is a political base for the governor. And so if the governor fails to come through for Planned Parenthood, they may fail to deliver for her in her 2026 election.
I want to talk about an issue we don't a lot on this program, and that is illegal immigration as it pertains to big rig drivers. This was a big story in both New York and Pennsylvania this week. Michael, there was a 31-year-old Uzbeki national with ties to terrorism that got a commercial driver's license in your state over the summer. The Pennsylvania Department of Transportation issuing this driver's license. A lot of folks want to know, how was this allowed to happen?
It was not only just a driver's license, but a real ID driver's license. And this person should not have been granted this at all in Pennsylvania. What's interesting is there's a lot of finger pointing going on right now in Harrisburg. A group of state senators asked PennDOT for an explanation, not just only on this case, but actually a letter that then went to the PennDOT about 17 CDL drivers that were part of an arrest in Oklahoma, all of whom got their driver's licenses, their CDLs from Pennsylvania. They're asking Governor Shapiro, how did this happen? Something is falling through the cracks.
Yeah, a lot of finger pointing at the previous administration as well on this one. I thought it was an underreported story in New York. Almost 40 illegal immigrants rounded up by Border Patrol agents at thruway rest stops from Syracuse to Buffalo. These guys also, Jason, had commercial driver's licenses. What can the state do better to guard against this?
Well, I think the state could start by, instead of giving favor to those who have entered the country illegally, we actually recognize that nations need borders and that they're there to protect the people of those countries. And just starting from that position point, I think we can then move forward. You know, as conservatives, we're not opposed to immigration. We would like to see legal immigration.
Michael, I want to talk about school choice in your state. It was a big issue in the recently adopted state budget. I know a lot of cyber charter schools are feeling shortchanged today. Governor Shapiro says he supports school choice, but does his rhetoric match reality?
I would say it does not. You know, when he first ran for governor, he was a proponent of school choice, and yet in his first budget, he line item vetoed it, and we've not seen a change in him since then. And that's typical of Governor Shapiro. He follows the political wind winds, and in this case, he's following the winds of the teachers union. That's one of the reasons why there was the cut in this budget on cyber charter schools. It not only impact the schools, but it impacts children in Pennsylvania who are getting a good education and now may be denied that choice.
Yeah. New York, Jason, we're still waiting to see what Governor Hochul will do with physician-assisted suicide. She has until the end of the year to decide what to do with that Senate-approved bill. I was reading an article about inadequate health care in Canada and how that's pushing more people toward this heinous practice. One man from Quebec who had developed bed sores in the hospital took his own life because of inadequate health care north of the border. I'm wondering if horror stories like that is why the governor is so hesitant to sign this bill into law.
Well, the governor has been very mum on this issue. We don't know how she's going to handle the legislation. We're waiting to see. But I will tell you that legislators have commented that the arguments coming out of Canada and the radical expansion of assisted suicide in that country is having an impact here in New York. We're so close to Canada, and so it is easy for us to hear those stories, to see what's happening there, and we hope that will have an impact as the governor considers how to handle state-sanctioned suicide.
Pennsylvania Senate Democrats, Michael, want to decriminalize homelessness. I didn't know it was a crime to be homeless, but they're pushing a bill that would require municipalities, before they fine people for loitering, they'd have to find them a place to stay at night. But what are your thoughts on this legislation in Pennsylvania and whether this is prudent action by PA Democrats?
Well, certainly have compassion for the homeless, but much of it has to do with drug abuse and also with psychiatric problems, and those are the issues that need to be addressed. And just providing housing or a place to be doesn't really answer those problems. That's where I think government needs to be looking. The other thing is that government typically, at least what we've seen here in Harrisburg and in Pennsylvania, is often hostile to the Christian ministries that are really providing solid solutions to the homeless crisis, regulating them sometimes out of business or making it so hard for them to do it. And this bill by the Democrats really is calling for more government solutions. I don't think government is the answer to many of the society problems, including homelessness.
Yeah. I want to talk about prison reform. That's a big issue in New York this week. The governor announcing that they're going to be shutting down a prison in the North Country. They're going to be shutting off part of a prison near Buffalo. Those who are for this will say, look, the prison population is down 54% since the late 1990s. But I thought the Senate Minority Leader, Rob Ward, had an interesting point saying, hey, there's two sides to that coin. Maybe people are not being incarcerated as much as they should. But what are your thoughts overall as far as the need to close prisons in New York, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's a fine line because there are some politicians who want to see the prisons open because they are economic development, jobs in their districts, and that's a problem. We should not look at prisons as simply as jobs. We don't want to incarcerate people just to help the local economy. At the same time, though, I do think it has become very difficult to put people in prison that should be there. There are too many people that are committing violent crimes that are back on the streets to commit those crimes again, and so bail reform has been a problem. Regardless of how it is spun by those in Albany, I think we've got some work to do, and I'm hoping the legislature will grab it in an election year. Remember, that is the benefit of elections. It helps give a gut chicken to bring elected officials back in line with the will of the people.
Well, Michael, your colleague Dan Barkowiak did a great job talking about one of the things that was in this spending bill that passed the Congress and brought an end to the shutdown was hemp-derived products containing THC. They are off limits now. Some people in the hemp industry don't like this, but you argue this was the right move by the federal government. How come?
Yeah, and there are some people in the convenience store business that don't like it in gas stations and things because this material was ubiquitous. The THC-derived chemicals that are in drinks and edibles and those sorts of things that find themselves in convenience stores unregulated completely, and the whole purpose of them is psychotropic, to get people high. You have young people having significant access to it because it is in so many different stores, and we're grateful this came out of Washington to shut it down, not just in Pennsylvania, but nationwide.
Yeah, and then finally, Jason, a big story on New York. The governor is delaying, they call it the gas stove ban, but it's a bit more involved than just that. New home constructions, any building under 7 stories tall, could not hook up natural gas to those buildings. That is on hold pending court action. Wonder if this was a political move by the governor, or is she hitting the pause button here out of necessity?
Well, I suppose that two things can be true at the same time. I mean, there is certainly some large political benefits for the governor to hit pause at this time. However, However, there is also a necessity. Republicans and now some Democrats have written to the governor to say, look, we have to put a pause. We got to stop this. We got to get this back in line. There are places in New York where it gets very, very cold. And if the electric grid goes down, it is a real problem for people in those regions. So this is an important opportunity for, again, the voters to stand up and to say, no, we need these things in our state.
All right. That'll have to be the last word this week. But as we mentioned, that 2025 State of Abortion report is out in Pennsylvania. If you'd like to read it, there is a way you can do that. And Michael, what is your website, sir?
PAFamily.org.
And stay involved on assisted suicide, a big issue in New York State. What will the governor do? Jason, you're writing about this on your website. Where can folks find out more?
At newyorkfamilies.org.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Capital Connection, the name of the program, comes your way every Friday during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. We're looking at a slightly milder day today than yesterday, but not nearly as bright, that's for sure. And the cloud cover will be acted upon by a disturbance to bring a little rain tonight to parts of central and southern Pennsylvania. Over the weekend, it looks chilly, seasonably so, and mostly dry. No particular issues for pre-Thanksgiving travel expected weather-wise. For this afternoon, mainly cloudy and drab. A brief shower in spots. High temperatures mid-40s to the mid-50s. Mainly cloudy tonight. There'll be some rain in parts of Pennsylvania, focused on the area near and south of Interstate 80. Low temperatures tonight, 30s and low 40s. Tomorrow, clouds, maybe an early day flurry in parts of western and central New York, then some sun, chillier. High temps low to mid-40s. Sunday, some sun in Pennsylvania, mostly cloudy with a rain or snow shower in New York. High temps in the 40s.
All right, great work as always at the Weather Center. Thank you, Kevin. Finally, at noon today, moss is pretty hardy stuff, it turns out, and now we know it can survive even in space, as in outer space. An experiment was conducted aboard the International Space Station a few years ago to see if moss could live outside that orbital outpost exposed to the extreme conditions of zero gravity. Turns out it can, and not just survive, but thrive. Researchers say that moss lived 9 months in orbit and could still reproduce after returning to Earth. So I guess that's why we know it's so hard to kill that stuff that grows everywhere in our backyards. That's our world, the world we live in. Friday, November 21st. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.